as Africans in the diaspora, we have access to capital, and this is an amazing investment opportunity that the Europeans are taking advantage of. The Chinese are well entrenched in Africa. Why wouldn't we be a part of that?
Right on. What's up, y'all? Welcome to Finding a Way, the podcast for positive change. I'm your host, Jim, and today I'm here with none other than the lovely Lydia Idem. Lydia, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Jim.
Thank you for taking time and making time. You know I'm going to get you out the gate because she made me wait for it. But, you know, definitely going to be worth the wait. I always have a wonderful time when I talk to you, so I'm very excited for our conversation today.
Thank you.
So, first of all, just, human to human, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. It's been a busy day, but I feel like busy is always good. So it's not busy work, it's meaningful work. So It's been a good day.
You want to give us anything? What does busy look like for you? Because I feel like you're a very active person.
Okay, so for me, so I work across multiple time zones. The company I work for is headquartered in Lagos, as you know. So I wake up quite early, I pray, I meditate, and then I go right into meetings. So I meet with my team. I meet with several different small teams. I do my one-on-ones with different people on the team. And that'll take me into about 11 o'clock our time. And then I can start working, whatever that means. So it could be reviewing financials. It could be responding to investors. It could be giving support to founders. Most of the time, it's responding to investors, making sure they feel good about their investment, giving them kind of our views. Right now, it's we're at the beginning of the year. It's Q1, so it's a lot of reporting that we're preparing. Last week, we got 2 of the funds reports out, so a little lighter. Working on another one, working on the management company, and also I do some work with individual investors. So it's a lot of that, watching markets and, just trying to make everyone feel good about where their own investments are, their portfolio is.
Right on. I want to make sure people understand the context of what we're talking about here. Talk a little bit about the work that you do.
Sure. So I'm Chief Operating Officer at LoftyInc Capital. LoftyInc is a early stage VC firm or venture capital firm headquartered in Lagos, Nigeria. We invest in early stage tech startups on the continent, also in the diaspora. Before I joined LoftyInc, I was an investment advisor, still am an investment advisor, properly licensed. So I work with individual investors and families. I like to say, I know investors really, really well. I understand investor sentiments, regardless if they're investing in private markets like venture capital, or if they're investing in stocks and bonds, which are our public markets. Investors generally have a view of the world, and they like to put their money to work according to that. So I'm always trying to look ahead as to what the macro environment might look like and how that influences investor behavior, because that will determine how well, not just our investments do for our investors, but also generally how more institutional investors will allocate dollars. And so it's really important for us to understand as venture capitals. It's important for us to understand how institutions also invest. But then on a more personal level, I'd like to make sure I understand how individual investors understand or are thinking about markets, because it helps us kind of communicate with them better.
Right. So it's almost like you have to look macro and micro, what's going on at the, on the large scale with the trends, with the institutions, and then getting to know people one-on-one,
Exactly.
what are your passions, interests, and focuses for your investments.
Yes, absolutely. Because at the end of the day, even in the institutions, there's still humans in there. So we got to make sure we're relating to them. We're communicating with them and making the people in the institutions feel good, so they can make their institutions feel better.
There you go. Okay. So a lot of communication from 11 o'clock on.
It's
just phone
5 a.m. on.
Texting. Yeah, you just straight to it from the morning on. But you said something early that I want to kind of key in on, because that's something that I aspire to. You said you wake up, you pray, and you meditate. How long have you been doing that? And just talk a little bit about that.
So I've been doing that for probably 6-7 years now. It came from necessity. So there was a point in my life that I was looking to kind of key in and develop more of a spiritual life that was beyond religion. So, I mean, I grew up in church. I think most of us did in our generation. So I grew up in church, and then going to college, then I explored different religions. But it wasn't until maybe 7 or 8 years ago when I kind of understood that there's a relationship with God. I call him God. There's a relationship with God that is personal and direct and doesn't require a pastor or a middleman. And so developing that, like where I used to live, I was able to create like a prayer closet, like literally a corner in my closet that I locked the door and the children were like, "Oh, mom's in there praying." Like, yes.
Time out, y'all.
Don't pause. Don't come here. Don't bother me. But then they got used to that. But then when we moved up here, it became more of time of day. And so to start the day, and since I have to start it so early, given that I'm talking to folks in literally on the other side of the globe, it was just a good way to start the day. And then the quiet of the early mornings, there's more connection. There's no disruptions.
Peaceful. Yeah.
It's peaceful. So yeah, it's something that I've just is cultivated. And I try not to look at the phone, but my phone is my alarm. So I kind of peek at it and then, put it down.
2 more minutes.
Right. 30 more minutes. Let me just, get centered. But it's actually a really good way to calm the mind and set, especially if I've taken time the night before to kind of plan the day ahead. And so then I can kind of level set. Once I come out of there, there's more calm into the meetings that I have like right immediately after.
Right. So you come more refreshed, more present.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I love that. I really, like I said, aspire to that. I'm whatever the opposite of a morning person is. But, I do have a practice that I've been gradually increasing. I told somebody, I think last time, really intentional meditation, probably only like about 3 times this year. But in those moments, I always kind of just get to kind of unpack the week and, check in with my body, check in with my mental. And I'm definitely an advocate. So I'm trying to start practicing what I preach. But thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I can definitely see just the way you carry yourself, just energy wise. I can definitely see that that's something that shines through.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I want to kind of get to the storytelling piece. So something we love to do on Finding a Way is, how did you find your way to where you are now?
Oh,
you can start back as far as you want to go.
Okay.
But, maybe highlight a couple of pivotal moments or decisions or experiences that kind of shaped your journey.
Okay, that's great. I'll start with really in my childhood, my mother introduced me to investing. So what she did was...
How early before? I'm sorry.
I would say, so I don't know. It's definitely before, it was before high school.
Okay.
Because what she did, we got a savings account, but she also got me a custodian account, which I didn't know what that was. I just knew it was with Charles Schwab, and I had a B of A account. Like, okay, cool. So when I got birthday gifts, I always put them in the brokerage account. And so I just did that because maybe it just earned more money. Like it earned more interest than the checking account. I kind of split it, but I mostly, right. Like, well, it's just sitting here, but it's going, it's so she's like, interest. And, that's when interest rates were higher. So, it actually meant something to put something in a savings account. Yeah. So I was doing that. And then it was AP economics. I remember the lesson. My teacher opened up the newspaper, taught us how to read stock quotes in the newspaper, because that's what we did back then. And we didn't have internet. And I was like, to me, it was just like, light bulb. And then I knew I had this brokerage account. So after basketball practice, I got in my car and I went to Charles Schwab and I walked in and was like, I want to buy some stocks. And they were looking at me like, who's this kid? And they're like, well, do you have an account with us? And I said, yeah. And so I brought my account statements because I knew this was going to be a thing. And they were like, well, sit down. So I bought my first mutual funds. Then I was going right before I went into college. So this was senior year. So I had some mutual funds. And then I used that to actually fund, like I went study abroad and I ran up a credit card. And I paid it off by selling some of the mutual funds. And I was able to pay that off because what I didn't know too, I didn't want debt. Well, it was interesting because I went to school, undergrad in the South, and I went to a predominantly white institution. So when I went to Charles Schwab there, they looked at me again like, who's this? Now it wasn't like, who's this kid? Like, who's this black girl?
Right.
And I did the same thing. Oh, I have an account here. Like, okay, well, sit down. And,
Money is green.
Always, all the time. So that I always think about that. That's really always fun. So after I graduated, I came out of with my bachelor's degree. I came back to the Bay Area, and my mother introduced me to Forex trading. And I was like, "What's that?" Right? She was like, "Oh, you can sell currencies. You can buy and sell currencies." I'm like, "Yo, you can't do that." And as soon as I said the can't, I was like, "You probably can." So I went with her to this seminar. And yeah, we bought the software, but most important is that they actually had an educational piece. And so I met my first mentor through that company, and I learned how to look at stocks. It was Forex. So I looked at currency charts, but I was able to do technical analysis. I learned how to do technical analysis. Then I translated that to stocks. And then I realized, well, we don't even need this software that we purchased. I can just do this by myself. So I started trading, like becoming an active trader. And so, I was day trading. So this is early 2000s. It was 2006. And then 3 years later, my brother dragged me onto Twitter. And I was just like, I don't want to do Twitter. I didn't even do MySpace. All I did was Black Planet. I don't want to do all this stuff.
Black Planet. Bring that back.
All the way back. Okay. So I did. I got on Twitter and I was like, okay, I just intuitively knew, let me talk about something. So I ended up talking about Forex markets, and I gained this huge following. I started going to finance conferences, and people like, oh my God, are you Faith Mai? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, I'm such a big fan. I'm like, me? Okay. Wow. So how do you do this finance thing? So I was teaching. So I came out of my undergrad, and I was a software developer. And then I went back to, I made a lot of money because it was a dot-com bubble. Right. It was the height of the dot-com bubble, internet boom. So I said, if I get my master's degree, I'll make more money. I got my master's degree, but then the dot-com bubble burst and there were no jobs. So I pivoted and I was teaching. So I'm teaching. I learned I'm Forex trading. And now I'm getting a following on Twitter because people like what I'm tweeting and it's accurate. So they're making money off what I'm doing for free. And I'm like, okay, so how do you make money? So my early mentor said, you should be a stockbroker. And I said, no, I don't. I've seen Wolf on Wall Street and I've seen Boiler Room. Like, I'm cool. I'm not trying to do that to people. Yeah. And I studied I studied the markets more and just realized you could be an investment advisor, have a fiduciary duty, put your client's best interest. I was already advising my parents, and my brother had just graduated too. So I was advising him in how to, invest his retirement account. It was 2012. I turned in my students' final grades. I turned in a resignation letter, and I studied for my Series 65. And 2 years later, I opened an investment advisory firm. Because what I learned was that it's not like a real estate license. So you can't just get your license and then go get a job. That your job or the company actually holds your license for you or sponsors your license. So I couldn't get a job without a license, and I couldn't get a license without a job. So I started FM Capital Group. It's a registered investment advisory, still there, still around. And I got my first wave of clients from my following on social media. That's awesome. So 10 years, people were asking me, can you teach me how to trade? Can you trade my account? Can you manage my money? And I was like, no. A lot of imposter syndrome. Yeah. It took me a long time to work through that and say, oh, okay. Because, I was trained up, you go to school, you get a degree, and you work 40 years in that degree, that job in that degree, and then you retire. So pivoting wasn't something that was very comfortable at the time. It took me a long time. And now, so I did that for a while. Saying now, like I did definitely make a pivot into VC, but that was my pathway. I kind of stormed into finance.
The early way. You came through as one of the first influencers in a way, on Twitter. Yeah, with the finance niche and everything. I think that's really awesome. What was that moment? Because this is something that I feel like has kind of become a theme in some of the episodes, like overcoming imposter syndrome. So what was that moment for you when you went from I'm trying this to no, I do this for real? Man, so I don't know that I ever
got over imposter syndrome. I think I just did it scared. I think I just did it anyway. And I would get validations. Like, so first it was my brother who very early on, he could see like, oh, you need to monetize this. You shouldn't be tweeting for free. I was also blogging because back then Twitter was only 140 characters. So
you had to go long form
long form
which
in
it
the blog.
still should be like that. Let's not get into it.
No, right. Hello. I'm of that mind as well. So he's like, you should be monetizing this. You shouldn't be giving it for free. And I'm like, well, free is working. Like, I'm getting all these followers and I'm getting all these invitations to do radio shows and webinars and eventually was TV. So it's working. And I don't want to charge people. What do they lose money?
Yeah. You don't want that pressure. Like, this is just, not personal advice. I
don't want to do all that. So I don't know that I ever got over it. I just did it scared and then just gained confidence in seeing the really positive results that I was having for students first and then for clients later. It just fueled me to say, okay, I'm doing something good and I'm on the right path and I really enjoy it. And so that for me, that was always kind of keyed me into like, okay, I'll keep doing this. And now working in VC, like it feels really good to talk to investors and also talk to founders, like talk to them how they get through their own imposter syndrome and build their businesses, especially in, the part of the world where we invest. So yeah, I wouldn't say that you might not ever really get over it. I just think you just have to do it. But I have a very audacious personality.
I can tell. You went to the bank in sophomore year, like, run it, man. No, I love that. So what was that pivot like from, I guess, forgive my terminology, but I guess traditional, like private investment banking to VC?
Oh, great. Okay.
Correct phrasing?
I would say it is more traditional, like I would just say traditional investing. In public markets versus So how I did that. So I started investing in venture capital as an angel investor, which is just an individual, individual investor.
I think that's awesome. So an angel investor is an individual investor, and you were like, "I'm gonna do this."
Yes.
Okay.
So. I'm on Twitter, I'm doing my thing, doing the Forex trading, tweeting, all these things. And I started following VCs. So I started, some of the older ones, like that first generation who made money off of investing in Twitter and Facebook. So those guys, I started following them. And then I started following some founders, not a lot, but just because I started to really get intrigued by venture capital. But the founders I did follow were founders that were in Africa. Because now what I was like noticing was like, oh, I can reach people in Africa here. Okay, well, that's very cool. And they're on here now talking about their businesses. Well, that's very cool. So now I just started following a bunch of them. And then I would see who was investing in them. And I started following them. So I'm like, okay.
Research.
So I'm like, all right, so I'm just following these folks, seeing what they're saying, kind of understanding the market they're operating in. And there was one founder that I really loved what he was doing. He was in agriculture, which I understood. So my family's from Nigeria. So I understand the importance of agriculture on the continent. It's like the largest employer, but it's really, really hard to disrupt for a number of reasons, which we can talk about. But so I was very interested in what he was doing was really disrupting the business model, not so much innovating on like with technology, but he was really innovating on like how a farmer could make money farming or growing and selling his crop. So that was very intriguing. So he was basically going to be the market for the smaller farmers. I don't like to say shareholder farmers. They're just small farmers in the community. He was going to be their market. So he could incentivize them to grow a particular crop. He would buy it and then he would be with them with bulk. He could then distribute larger.
Like a Macy's or
exactly.
Amazon. Yeah.
Right. So I was like, oh, brilliant. And then at the same time, he would also train them in how like not proper, but like more modern practices.
Best practices, yeah.
So that they would have higher yield. So, they grow more, they would make more money. He would get more and he could make more money. I'm like, this is awesome. Yes. So I met him maybe 3 times. I met him in San Diego. I met him twice in New York, and I invested $2,500. I learned a lot. One, I could not, this was 2012. I made my first angel investment in Africa in 2012. I made my first angel investment period in business school. That was 2001. So what I noticed that I couldn't, this was a startup in Uganda. I couldn't even get Ugandans who are my closest friends to invest with me. I was just like, what? Well, we trust you, Lydia, but we don't trust you. Who's that? Who's he? I'm like, but I've met with him several times. Like, he's legit. How do you know he's legit? I was like, because I know. So I couldn't get anyone to invest with me. So I did the investment by myself. The second thing I learned was the exchange rate was really in our favor, investing dollars. So I did 2,500, which, at this time we're thinking VC has to be millions of dollars. Right. I did it with 2,000, and it became millions of shillings when it finally got to Uganda. It was 6.1 million shillings. And then the valuation was a lot lower than they were here. So especially sitting in, Silicon Valley in the heart of VC, valuations, especially early stage valuations, can start at 10, 20 million, which I made that investment in that company. It was like $1.2 million valuation. So I got a nice piece of the company for $2,500, but when it converted, it was 6.1 million shillings. And then the third thing was the impact. So he went from 2 to 12 employees. He bought his first hectare of land. And so because he realized he had to prove the business model to the farmers to get them to buy in. So he also started farming. So I was like, wow, this is very interesting. So when I fast forward to 2017, when I had my first wave of clients who are suited for venture capital, by this time, people were just like, how do I invest? How do I invest in VC? How do I invest in VC in Africa? How do I invest in VC in Africa? And so 100% of our clients are of the diaspora. So most of them are first generation like myself. So they were wanting to invest in Africa anyway. So with the venture capital, like the risk profile, the risk reward profile, they were very excited. So you go just fast forward, what is that, 5 years from people where nobody wanted to do VC in Africa to like, let me in. And I'm just like, it's not suitable for you. Like, okay, you're good. Like, it's not suitable for you.
Now you're the filter, right?
I mean, I had retirees talking about, can we invest in Africa? I was like, no, you can't. So it was still a suitability. As an investment advisor, I have to take into account if it's suitable for you, right? So it can't just be anyone can invest. But it just was interesting to hear, like to see the sentiment and to see the excitement for the asset class in Africa and the understanding that, which probably my fourth lesson was, we can have impact here. As Africans in the diaspora, whether we're African Americans, we have some African Canadians that are clients. So as those of us in the diaspora, like we have access to capital, and this is an amazing investment opportunity that the Europeans are taking advantage of. The Chinese are well entrenched in Africa. Why wouldn't we be a part of that? Right. So that was that became the mission for me, was like, I wanted to lead other angel investors into this asset class, which we're largely don't participate in, and into a part of the world that would have the most impact on people that look like us. And why I focus really on the global South. So obviously Africa, I'm Nigerian, but I understand as a people, we're really around the world. And the challenges that Africans face are pretty similar to the ones that Caribbean people face, that Afro-Latino people face. And those are the challenges I aim to solve. So that's really how I got into VC and why I focus so heavily on Africa.
Right on. I love that. I love that story. In that 5-year period, what is something that you feel like you observe maybe in trends or just in narratives and language that shifted? Or was there something like that you observed when, people were kind of maybe skeptical or not so excited about investing in Africa to, 5 years later, here we are, let me in.
Yes.
Do you think that was like a culture thing, or was there just more awareness coming out? Was there something that you think happened in that period?
Yes. definitely more awareness, because the thing that happened was that Mark Zuckerberg went to Lagos in 2016. And maybe less than a year later, he invested in Andela, which Andela now is a unicorn. And it's one of our early investments, LoftyInc early investments.
What is Andela, if you don't mind?
Andela is an ed tech company.
Education. Yeah.
So, but what they do is they train. So they started training. No, they still do, but the business model. But they train software developers in Africa, and then deploy them across the world to software companies. So, the founders had this idea of like, the talent is here, but the opportunity is out of reach.
Right.
So if we can bring the opportunity to them, train them up. And it's not just technical skills, because many Africans, especially if we just key in on software engineers or engineers generally, they have the technical piece, very well trained, technical, can code, all the things. But then there's also the soft skills, like how do you relate? How do you relate to another, but like, how do you deal with the manager-boss relation? Because culturally, it's very, there is culturally, Americans won't understand this, but there is a huge difference with Africans in terms of age, and then title. Titles are huge. So if you have the title, let's say regardless of age, if you have the title, like, I'm going to defer to you, I might not look you in your eye, where in the US, like that means either you're shy, you're not going to get, you're not going to get the advancements, where from African point of view, it's just a sign of respect. Right. So there's those kind of cultural nuances that play out in the workplace that Andela was seeking to help solve for, so that they could be ready for a global marketplace. And so they started in 2012, I want to say 2013, under a different name, rebranded. And now 10 years later, they hit unicorn status in 2022.
That's crazy.
So yeah, so that's what happened in that 5-year period. Is Zuckerberg entered Lagos. He jogged across the mainland, the bridge, and a beautiful bridge. And that was just like, not even just shockwaves. It really put a light on the ecosystem in Lagos most immediately, or more the primary focus, but then broadly. And then not too long, Jack Dorsey came into Nigeria as well. That he actually went across. He went to Accra as well. He went to Nairobi. And it was those and obviously tweeting or posting on Facebook that Africa is the next place, right, for innovation. Those headlines had Africans everywhere proud. How do I get in? How do I invest in tech? I mean, if it's good enough for Mark Zuckerberg. Now, mind you, 2 years ago,
the same ones
didn't want to invest.
When Lydia was there, y'all didn't want
y'all didn't want to listen to me.
It's too early.
It's too early. I don't know them. Now it's like, here, take my money. Like, all right, well, let me help you do it responsibly.
Right.
So that's really what happened.
Yeah, because I feel like around that time is when you kind of started to see, I know like Google built like some huge, what was it, a data center or a campus, I think.
Yeah, they have a campus there. Microsoft has a campus in Lagos
and
now.
It was all kind of around that period. So that definitely makes sense.
Yep.
I thought you was going to say that's when Burna Boy started popping off.
Nope. He had nothing to do with it.
It wasn't him. All right. Well, before we kind of pivot a little bit, I want to go back one more time because, you sprinkled it in there when you talked about your journey into investment. You said you left basketball practice. So there was this alternate universe, y'all, where Lydia is in the WNBA or, retired right there, up there with Lisa Leslie and all of them. So I just want to talk a little bit about your professional or athletic career. Because I know it was basketball and track, right? Yeah. So if you want to speak on that a little bit.
Jim is going back in time. I mean, I have not visited this part of my life in a minute.
Well, it's, All-Star Weekend coming up. I'm thinking about buckets, y'all.
So, I used to ball. Like, I was good. Yeah, I was good. I got recruited to Occidental for basketball. I got recruited to University of Pennsylvania for track.
Okay.
I didn't go to either because one, I didn't love track. Track was a way for me to train off season. Yeah. So I didn't love it, but we had a great
just
time.
Just to run around, right?
like all the time.
Like, that's what we're going to practice?
This is why I was a jumper too, because the runners run too much. Even the sprinters ran
and it's like,
way
I hate track
too
meets
much.
because you're going to sit there for like at least 5 hours and your race going to be 10 seconds.
Yes.
I used to hate that.
Yes.
But go on.
See, as a track person, though, it was fine. Like, we live for those moments. You want to get on the track and do your thing, or get on the runway, in my case, do your thing. So I didn't go to, U of Penn because I didn't love track. And then I didn't go to Occidental because I was very much wanted to be at a D1 school. And so I went to neither, but I was quite good. I definitely did ball. I played basketball since I was like 10.
Yeah.
And I was really good early, naturally. My 8th grade, so middle school coach helped me get onto the varsity team. My parents, they just come to the games. I mean, for them it's school. Like, get A's. Okay, so like not even get good grades, get A's.
Y'all heard it.
Okay, so the basketball piece was just like, I mean, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
It keeps you busy, but you're getting A's. Okay, we're not going to say anything. So he helped me get on varsity. So it's very funny because it's funny to me. I should have been on the varsity team. So I was balling with the varsity team during the summertime, my summer going into my freshman year. And it became political because the seniors who I was out balling, didn't like that. They can see that I'm take their spot. Me,
like, who is this 12-year-old?
Me, I'm just playing basketball. To me, you put the best people on the court. So I don't understand what the problem. Are we winning?
Yeah.
So what's the problem? I was too young for all of that. So I didn't even perceive it. So what they made nice was, well, Lydia wants you to be on the JV team and you'll definitely start, which is all I cared about. You definitely start. And then we'll see how you do. And then we'll move you to varsity. Well, of course, I was on varsity by end of the season. They moved me to the varsity. Then it was, well, we owe, this, I'm a freshman. We owe the sophomore, the seniors, like the starting position. We owe her the starting role, the starting spot when the seniors graduate because she's been here.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I took her spot too.
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Savage.
And she had to respect it. She did. She was just like, well, we're winning. Lydia is better. Like,
I just want the ring, coach. Well, I love it.
You said it, not me. So, yeah. But yeah, I did ball. I was a little Simon. I put it down in college and everybody back home was like, no, Lyd, but you can. I was like, y'all, the girls here are 6'1", okay?
Point guard.
It's okay. It's all right. I'm not going to play basketball anymore. It's cool. I'm a pivot.
Yeah, there you go. Do you have a favorite player or like somebody you kind of like used to, mark their moves and stuff like that?
Michael Jordan.
Jordan was one, of course.
That was it. I was a Bulls fan. Sorry to the Warriors.
Back then, shoot.
Back then,
even now.
But hey, good for y'all. Like my brothers, Warrior fans. Also Bulls fans, but they were definitely Warriors fans. So I'm happy that they had their moment. Yeah. I'm really happy for the Bay. We
desperately needed it.
Yes. It's been 30 years since the last championship. It really so I was happy for the era of greatness. They're in San Francisco now. So what you gonna do? Duh. Clearly.
I feel a way about it. Still.
Well, the season reflects. Reflects it.
Shout out Jimmy Butler though. We need that too. Do you have anybody you're kind of watching now or?
Oh no, child. No, not really.
Far too busy.
Way too busy. No. I followed the Warriors during the hype. I bandwagoned. But knowingly, it wasn't like I'm like, ooh, Warriors. I'm more like, all right, bring shine to the Bay. Yeah, let's let's go to
parade.
Hyphy.
I didn't go to the second parade. Like after the second or third one, I'm like, all right,
well, this is obvious. Obviously, we were winning now.
We got it. I love it. Okay, so back to you. What's some things that you are currently working on that you're most excited about?
Oh, so it's definitely raising these funds. So I'm super passionate about bringing capital flows into the global South. So starting with Africa, but I've always wanted to do Latin America, Africa capital movement. So that's like what I'm really, really passionate about. But like baby steps, I just, before I joined Lofty Inc., I was endeavoring to raise my own fund. I was actually fundraising and met the folks at Lofty and made introductions on their behalf. And then they asked me to join. And I was like, absolutely. They invested in Andela. Hello. Like I'm definitely going to join you guys. So no problem. But so that's what we're working on now. We have a new fund. We have a new fund. It's our third. So the first two, I joined on the second fund. I joined the company when they were raising their second fund. So now we have three funds. There are different life cycles, which is very unique, especially in Africa. I think especially for Black fund managers, a lot of fund managers are on maybe a fund one, definitely fund one, or maybe a fund two. We're on a fund three. And I have my eyes set on a fund four with a slightly different focus, a different geographical focus. So hopefully work happens in the Caribbean again for me. But I've never left the region. I've worked with different programs, advising founders in Guyana, in Barbados. So just, for me is to get more of a lay of the land, look at what innovations are happening in that region. And what the founders are, where are they in terms of building a business around this kind of innovation? That's what I'm really excited about. I'm really excited about just raising more funds, collaborating with my fellow fund managers in Africa as we're all. Like a couple of years ago, I was talking to a friend of mine who's a fund manager, and I was like, "Girl, none of us know what we're doing. Okay, we're all just out here. Okay,
making it happen.
We're just making it happen." She was like, "How do you do this? How should I do this?" Girl, do whatever makes sense to you. It's okay within the law. Just
I don't have nobody knocking on my door. Just make it happen.
Within the law. Okay, so now. Like 3 years later, I feel like, there are a crop of us who know what we're doing. I feel like I'm one of them. So that's really exciting to talk to folks who are looking to break into VC, to work in the business. And so that's exciting to see talent come in that's originating on the continent. We've not seen that before, like analysts and associates in a heavy way. So if you look at the time when I entered VC in Africa, we're all like angel investors turned fund managers, erecting our own funds. So we're all doing it on our own without that kind of junior staff support. So we're all doing everything. We're all entrepreneurs. And so it's actually really exciting to kind of build a pipeline of talent for VC in Africa through our internship program, through the different roles that we've been able to hire for, and then seeing our peers do the same. So that's actually been really exciting. So awesome. I love the work. I love the progression of the asset class in Africa and being a part of that story. So that we can see, because there's more. It's like we erect these funds, we invest early stage, the companies grow, they're going to need growth capital. So getting them ready for that, for private equity, then they're going to need to IPO somewhere. And hopefully we get to a place where they're IPOing on the continent. And therefore that wealth origination and creation stays on the continent. Right now it has to go into New York or into London to get that liquidity. But I firmly believe like we're going to see a time where we're going to see our first IPO, likely in the new Cape Town stock market. Awesome. Maybe not so much Johannesburg. It's more geared towards more traditional businesses, but Cape Town erected one that's specific for startups. So fewer capital requirements and all of that. But we're going to see like more. Also, a nice trend that's happening. Like we have startups that are targeting retail traders. So much like E-Trade in 1999 that opened up, people take it all for granted now, but it was E-Trade that opened it up for us regular people to invest in stocks affordably.
Remember those commercials, the little babies and stuff?
Okay, exactly. And what I don't know people understand is how that grew our stock market in the U.S. And made it as liquid as it is. And what I see happening now is our first few E-Trades in Nigeria and Kenya and Ghana. And what that will do is bring more people, especially as wealth increases and incomes rise on the continent. Those folks are going to have discretionary income. They're going to want to create wealth. And so they're going to start investing. And they are, because these companies are live. And that's going to bring more people into the stock markets. And so if there's more liquidity happening, businesses will be more apt to look at their local bourses instead of going abroad. Right. So these are all long-term lofty ideas, as we say, that I'm really excited about. Makes me really have no problem waking up at 5 a.m.
It's good work. Like you said, meaningful work. I love that, because I definitely, you don't really think about that, especially as someone who was a layman when it comes to the investment space. But it's like spaces like E-Trade, or now it's become like Robinhood and stuff like that. It kind of democratized the stock exchange, as opposed to, having to go through Charles Schwab or having to go to a traditional broker. Right. So it completely shifts the market. But I didn't think about, how much that would impact the market as a whole, as far as how much money is in it, because now just so much more accessible. Exactly. Yeah, that's awesome. Right on. So kind of on the flip side of things, I guess, we highlight some things that you're excited about. What are some of the challenges that you feel like you face in your work?
Well, I guess I think it's probably not just my work, but it's just like ego. Like my ego clashing with other egos. There can be some cultural nuances. So, I'm a Nigerian, but y'all, I'm American, right? I'm a capitalist, right? So I also grew up in the Bay. Right. So
a different swag.
We got a different swag. We're a bit more laid back. Versus I work in a Nigerian company. Okay. And Nigerians are formal people. They speak more formal than we do. They have more British English, and so they speak more formal. They have this respect for titles that I just don't have. And like, I respect you as CEO, but I'm gonna call you Jim. Yeah. I'm not calling you sir.
Right.
I'm not calling you anything formal. I'm calling you your first name. and I'm joking with you like this. Like, I'm gonna. So I don't have all of this. I don't have all this formality with myself. And then even as COO, I'm also supposed to be very formal, and you're supposed to defer to me, and I don't have all that, So I think that confuses my team when they first start working with me, because I'm like this.
Yeah. Which we love. Which is why I love.
I'm like this. Oh, okay. And eventually when we're in person and then they get the real full flavor of my personality, they're just like, okay, all right, Lydia.
This is my boss.
Yeah. So especially when they meet like their friends, like, so you're his boss? I'm like, yeah.
We're all out right now.
Like, all right on. Okay. So I think that can be challenging. But I take it with a grain of salt, because I understand, I've been around Nigerian culture. I grew up in it. So I get it.
Right.
And I try not to offend, but I'm also going to be myself. Then ego. I think being a woman in the space can be challenging for other people, and men and women. I think it can be very challenging. And I have a very direct personality, and I speak very plainly. So I'm not always one to massage my delivery. I'll say that I'm getting better at it, but it's more so I can get the job done. So I can get what I need out of you.
Tact.
You know what I mean? So I think ego can be very challenging, especially in my role. So I'm an investor. You've heard my story, my journey. Like, I'm an investor who works in what we call the back office. Now, I love the back office. It gets, I don't know, it's not sexy. Like, I'm not the out front investor, which is fine. I'm building a business. Like, I have a bigger vision for what I'm doing. So I don't need to be out front. It's cool. But my own ego, I want to be out front, like, or at least want to be recognized for the work I'm doing back here, you know? So there can be that I've struggled with in my career. I'm much, much better with it because, again, like, I have a North Star. I know what I'm building, even if no one else can see it. That's fine. I've always been like kind of out front. Like, you know, I've told you, like, when I first started talking about investing in Africa and Latin America, and people are like, well, what's the connection? I'm like, what? What's the connection?
The boat.
Let's start like real cruelly, okay? A little thing called slave trade. I don't know. But we can go beyond slave trade, which is where I like to take it. Like, we've been trading with each other for millennia before the free trade. Yes, there's Yoruba people in Nigeria. There's Yoruba people in Brazil. They didn't get there because of slavery. They got there through natural trade lines. So those trade lines are what I've always connected to. It wasn't even slave trade, which actually weaponized those lines, and everybody forgot that we've actually been doing business with each other forever, actually. We just went home. Okay. And I'll see you next season. I'm not trying to conquer anybody. I'll be back. Like, see you later. So I like my home. Yeah. So that's, so I have a North Star. So I can put ego down in certain respects, but let's be clear, especially if I talk to the women, you got to have some ego about yourself. Like, you know, you have to laud yourself. I tell my junior people, I tell the folks who work for me, are you guys on social? Like, you need to, and I can talk to myself, but you need to post what you do. Did you go to a conference? You need to take pictures and post them and give them to me, so I'll post them on the company side. Did you speak somewhere? Why aren't you telling me? How come I'm seeing on the organizers page that you were at a conference last week speaking on a stage? Oh, well, I'm just an analyst. And?
Right.
Like, because I told you about the pipeline of talent, right? So it's a very valuable point of view. And so they're kind of mind blown. Again, it's the whole like, what? You're the one who's supposed to be on stages. Nah, you're the one who's supposed to be in the press.
Like that over humility.
So I'm like, no, like, you guys have to be out front as well. So, like, we also have to make sure, you know, we pump, you know, we're kind of loud about the things that we do, but kind of knowing when to play up your ego and put it down, and when it's really helpful, because ego is helpful. And when it's not helpful, and just like, so that's probably the most challenging thing. And then because of my role, I also manage other egos. So I have to do that work as well. I think working with investors on an individual basis helps me work with other investors now, like within a VC firm, or like we're building an institution, like we say. So within an institution, I can understand, okay, I understand what you're needing. And so let me try to deliver that, even if it's like me getting someone to deliver it for you or whatever it is. Even our investors, right? So, okay, he just wants a response. Let me just put everything down, respond real quick. And it's just like, oh, thank you, Lydia. Like, no problem. That's all he needed. That's all she wanted. So, yeah, I think that it's probably the soft side, the soft skills of the business that can be challenging. And lastly, like the time zone, okay?
That's
like,
a very real challenge.
Like, it still marvels, like, you know, San Francisco Bay Area is the capital of venture capital. y'all are all waiting for us to wake up.
Yeah.
It was wild. Like the whole world has been just,
right.
When can I contact San Francisco?
6 p.m.
So the time zone has can be a bit challenging as well. I mean, I have a routine to it. It works for me now, but there's moments where it's just like, yo, I'm not meeting with you at 3 a.m. I'm not doing it.
Not gonna break my back.
I'm not doing that. Thanks. But for $8 million, $25 million, I'll see you at 3. No problem. So there's those moments. You still got to meet somebody in the middle of the night.
Yeah. No, that's real. Okay. So talked about some challenges. I've heard you say you've had growth in a lot of these areas. Are there things that you feel like are, specific tactics that you use to kind of overcome when it comes to these soft skills or, the routine thing that you mentioned?
Yeah. So I guess to build on the routine a bit. So I do journal a lot.
Okay.
I guess I've journaled my whole life. Back then it was like I was writing in my diary. But yeah, I think that really helps to become more self-aware. So I'm much more self-aware than I was in the beginning of my career. So that allows me to I can read people's energy or kind of read their body language and kind of understand we're either vibing or where we're not. We're bumping heads. Also, practicing my own self-awareness helps me understand and see people better. So either, and then it becomes a decision on my part. Like I can choose to react or I can choose to respond.
Yeah.
I can choose to fall back a bit or I can choose to just come and go blows too.
Yeah.
Like we can, I like to dance, so it's fine. We can do
love
that. All day long. I'll go all night. It's fine. So I think that just comes with self-awareness too, though, as opposed to any kind of, I guess, like weakness or shyness or fear. It's more like I'm choosing my response. And I'm not always great at it. Like, on the bay, if you push me enough, we gonna tussle.
So you're gonna see what the bay is about.
You're gonna see it's gonna come out. I grew up in the 80s.
Hey, that's real bad. Don't play. Okay, yeah. You alluded to kind of somewhere in there that North Star. Can you talk a little bit more about, I guess, your vision, what you hope to see?
Oh, so yeah, I think I've talked about it several times in our conversation. I really want to see a wealthy, developed Africa. Like that is what I hope to see in my lifetime. Power on all the time, like we experience here. Roads that are well-maintained, just well-maintained infrastructure.
Yeah.
I just want to, there's infrastructure there. Like, don't get me wrong. There are roads there, everybody, please. I beg, there's roads.
Don't overreact,
there are roads,
people.
There's airports, there are buildings. There's electricity. My God, please. Okay?
Don't come for her.
Don't come for me. But, just the... And I mean, if we're honest, the U.S. is not maintaining its stuff either. So,
right,
let's we can do better. We can do better. It can be cleaner. So, how many potholes in the road right now? So, let's not
on the way here.
Okay, so it's not an African thing. Let me just. It used to be just Oakland. Now it's everywhere.
But the Oakland ones are definitely illegal. I passed the Grand Canyon on the way here today. I'm just saying. So it's like, please don't come for Africa. Let's okay. So, but there's so much beauty, and it's just, I'll say it's hard to get to because of lack of infrastructure, right? And so people will ask me, they'll see me in Nigeria and they'll ask me, oh, what is there to do in Nigeria? I don't know. Go.
It's like, what? I mean, I can't even say go. I have people.
Well, that's also if somebody said, what is there to do in California? I'll be pissed off because what do you mean?
Yeah, there's, go.
What are you into?
Go in. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You can look it up there. You can get there. So so my daughter, she will travel throughout Europe because she's very much public transportation and she wants to get there on her own and she won't coming to the global south because she's like, well, can I get a train from the
That
airport to the
train system
hotel?
I get where she's coming from.
You understand what I'm saying? So for me, I'm like, who cares?
We don't have that.
Well, we have, it'll take you a minute. You can take BART, but I know what you mean. It's not like that,
put you on the doorstep on Europe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It doesn't compare to European train system. It's true. And New York comes close, but if you're doing JFK, that's a trek, right? To do the train. So it's just, when I say infrastructure, I mean like real thorough access, that you don't have to have your people escort you everywhere. You can get to things like we should be, a developed tourist industry, and so that's what I'm looking for. That's what I want, and it's so right there because it's not a matter of human capacity or capital. It's literally capital.
It's incentives.
It's capital flows.
No? Yeah.
There are, sure, the government can do its part to incentivize, but at the end of the day, it's like capital that comes in, will it get to where it needs to go to do what it needs to do? And so that's the challenge. I know we're going to experience that in the next 4 years.
Yeah.
Like we're going to see what it means when capital can't get to where it's supposed to go to do what it needs to do. And so that's that's really Africa's challenge. And there's a lot of words that we can use to describe it, but at the end of the day, that's what it is. So that's why I like VC, because it goes directly to the founder. Mm-hmm. If they're a good founder and know how to grow a business, then
the impact is there.
It happens there. Mm-hmm. They're hiring, they hire folks, they're paying them. Those people can pay school fees. They can pay for the generator. So even if the government or the public sector is not providing infrastructure, you can buy your own infrastructure, which is what I just find Africans in general, and maybe Nigerians very specifically, because I experience it, the ingenuity and the ability to just have your own infrastructure. I mean, they'll take care of their trash. They'll take care of their electricity. They're taking care of their water, like the pumping of the water, the way it flows through the house. Like they take care of that on a very individual and family level, household level. It's very impressive. There is not an American who can pump their own water into their house.
Right.
They wouldn't know what to do if Waste Management did not come pick up their trash.
Please don't do that to me. Listen. I hate going outside to flip the little damn box when the circuit breaker shorts.
And yet, that's a fact of life. It's switching between the grid and your own generator. Yeah. That's life.
Man.
So one of my first investments was a company. They just got acquired, but it was a company that's what they were innovating for. So that you could flip the switch box from your phone. And then with that, with the ability to do that, you start now to be able to track your own energy usage.
Right.
You can see like how much energy you're using and, what time of the day.
We need that because I feel like my bill the math don't be mathing, y'all. I don't know. But yeah.
PG don't want you to have that innovation.
To have that information. I swear I'm not watching that peak time. What is this?
Yeah. So that's what I'm living for. That's what I'm living to see.
Something I want to ask you about, because I definitely feel like we share that passion. That's what we, where we kind of connected on our first encounter, where it was like, just wanting to see the investment in the global South and seeing it thrive and seeing the right people.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it like that, but like people who know the most and care the most, investing in those spaces and reaping those benefits. Something I think a lot about, though, and I've talked to Mike about this. Mike's behind camera, y'all, by the way. Shout out to Mike. But yeah, I think a lot about, I guess, modernization. A lot of times what we end up talking about is Westernization. And that's like one of my biggest fears. It's like, I feel like, like you said, it's not like starting from complete blank slate. There is infrastructure, obviously, in Africa, but there's a lot of space and room for development as well. So it's like, I mean, you're already kind of starting to see it in metropolitan areas where it's like, they're mimicking Western skylines. We're going to throw up these skyscrapers and we're going to make it, look like the hub that it is, which is cool. I'm not saying scratch all of that, but I also feel like just for, my personal beliefs and preferences, like sustainable development, architecture, and like cultural things, for example, like these people who have these hard life skills that can serve them if, God forbid the apocalypse comes. It's like, I know how to pump water out the ground, like, stuff like that. So it's like, you don't want to lose the essence and the culture and the tradition and the those skills that go along with that. But you also, obviously want to bring people some of the modern amenities and luxuries that come with modern living. So it's like, what are your thoughts, I guess, around that balance between modernization while also kind of keeping the essence of what's already there?
Yeah. So it's my hope that the educational systems in Africa and the various countries can have some, I guess, incorporation of traditional practices, because ultimately you are gonna lose those things if there's not intention.
Right.
And, it's most clearly it's most clearly seen in language. And so if all the schools are teaching English and you're not teaching Ibibio, that's our language. I know people know Igbo and Hausa and Yoruba, but our language is Ibibio. Like, if you're not teaching that in school too, so then it becomes thought of as like not an academic language, because folks are not writing and reading. It's conversational.
Yeah.
But you're teaching English, and you have great proper English. You teach, you speak better than Americans.
Yeah.
So I think there has to be a balance, but you have to have that kind of foresight in your leadership. Because even in the US, there are skills that are gone. Like, people can't farm.
Yeah.
Like, let's say Americans won't farm or can't farm or whatever it is, when they used to farm in mass, okay?
Right.
It used to not just be something that you gave an unskilled worker. Like,
what is that?
Why is that unskilled?
It's the only skill.
It's actually a skill.
The most vital?
Like being able to know when a crop is ripe and edible. I don't know. Got me crazy. Sounds like a skill.
Sounds like a scam to me.
But like, we've lost that ability. Like, there used to be an ability that was, you taught and passed down.
Yeah. And it was like happened so quickly, like within, 2 generations.
Yes.
Tops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there has to be real intention within families to maintain some of those skills. Like, my grandmother was, I guess you would call her a medicine woman, but she can go out. She grew crops, right? She grew plants to heal. And my dad, his siblings, nobody got that skill. Like, nobody learned. Nobody.
Losing
it's
recipes,
like just
yo.
that fast.
Yeah.
Like, nobody thought to, because they grew up with it. They grew up around it. It's just obvious. Like, why would it go away? Right. So it has to do with a lot of intention. And sometimes it's even the younger generation. Like, I feel like we'll see it before our parents do. So like my children, they want me to cook traditional foods. I can cook 2 dishes.
Yeah.
I understand where they're coming from, right? But my parents are right here. Please go and learn how to cook it and cook it for me.
Right.
Cooking's just not my ministry. I can do it. I have children, y'all. Okay, I can cook. I'll do it. But, I rather invest and, work with money. So we all have our calling.
So I'm going to go get the food. Y'all make it.
We all have our calling. We all have our
community.
skill. It's community. We can't do it all.
That part.
So, yeah, I think that's the intention. But I think that also if we had en masse a proper valuing of our traditions. Like, there is so much value put on foreign brands, things that are created outside of the country. And I don't know how you get that mind shift towards like things made locally by local artisans. Like, we value things made in Africa more than a local African will value that thing that's made right now. And it could be just like it's a number of things. It's taking it for granted.
Right.
It's media,
Yeah.
right? It's socializing. So
sometimes it's like proximity too, right? Like I know it's kind of a thing out here, at least. Like if you see somebody that you know doing something, you kind of have a tendency to downplay it. Like, oh, it's another hoodie or another t-shirt brand. Like, no, that's an entrepreneur over there. Like,
exactly.
Buy him instead of buying that
the
expensive
Nike,
ass,
right?
Gucci,
exactly.
Nike, whatever.
Yeah.
Support your local.
It's true. So like that tends to be maybe it's just human nature actually.
Yeah, people be hating.
Yeah.
But also on the flip side of that, I was kind of joking earlier with the burner board thing, but I feel like there is some sort of growing pride, and I think the media plays a huge part in that. At least, from my perspective over here in the diaspora, it's like I definitely feel like the maybe cultural divide between the continent and the diaspora is kind of coming together, at least from that standpoint in the arts and stuff like that. And I also just feel like we're kind of getting to see, people kind of taking more pride in stuff that is produced on the continent. So, for example, Mike getting a lot of shout outs today, but he was telling me about when he was kind of doing some early filmmaking, he did like documentaries around hip hop culture in Kenya. And when he was leaving Kenya, this was like somewhere 90s, 2000, and there was a lot of people that would try and mimic people in America.
Sure.
And then when he was going back, sometime in the 2000s, he was actually observing that, people were rapping in Swahili and starting to take pride in just the product at home.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of just snowballed a little bit. Like you're starting to see, Afrobeats getting the love and recognition. Tim's got a Grammy, Burna Boy, all these people,
Right.
Tyler. So it's like, it's definitely something, there's an energy, I think, that's kind of shifting from, let's export and outsource all of our media and whatever to, no, we have something special here.
Yeah, I think you're right. You're right. You're starting to see more like even like Netflix is coming in and Nollywood is
Nollywood,
you know what I mean. So they're getting more distribution. So it definitely will start with I think it feels like it always starts with culture. Plus the time is right. So like there's more acceptance of Black culture just generally.
Yeah.
And so I think because when you were saying that, I think of Fella, and so how Fella was huge for my parents. I would listen to Fella all the time. But it was right at a time where hip hop was coming in, right? It was starting to blossom, and there was still large pushback, right, from mainstream media against Black culture or hip hop being so widely listened to or distributed that Fella sound will get lost in that. So it's like the timing is also really, really right for folks to like say, okay, what more what more is it to this Black culture? And it's like it's global. It's really global. Like we can think of why am I gonna forget his name? Caribbean music, Jamaica.
Yes. Not Bob.
Yes, thank you.
She did not just sit here.
See, I'm
not gonna shame you. I'm gonna shame you. You forgot Bob.
They're gonna edit that out.
No, we're gonna put that's the trailer right there. She said Caribbean music.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean?
That guy. That guy.
Bob Marley also right? So I think my point is Black culture globally, it gets its moments and its shine. And it makes us, I think it also I do think there's a narrowing of the gap. And I'm hoping it helps us do business with each other and make money together so that, more people can really be uplifted, really economically. I mean,
It's a great starting point.
You can live, music,
you can live a lot more broadly when you have your needs taken care of.
Right. For sure. 100%.
Yeah. Okay. So we all kind of know the political landscape that we're in right now in the States, at least. And I don't know about y'all. I'm finna peace out. You know me. I'm on that plane 2 weeks from now, actually. But I've been hearing a lot of, I guess, grumblings and kind of people with the same similar sentiment, like, we don't have to sit here and take this. And a lot of people are actually going back home. So the diaspora is coming to something called like a re-aspora. Have you heard about that? And any thoughts about, people kind of taking that plane back home?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's been happening, I would say, for a decade now. And I think there's just so much opportunity. So definitely like real estate and buying homes, buying land, building is a huge opportunity. Of course, just businesses, right? Just starting a business is actually really strong opportunity, especially if you're, to me, agriculture now, that's, labor intensive. But if you have the land and you can figure out the logistics behind it, then I think agriculture is always going to be a strong employer on the continent. And I just think, honestly, getting in a business and working with an established business, because there's so much, and I talked about like the skill set that you bring in, because Africa is so young, like the median age is like 19. And I talked about like their strong technicals, like education on the continent is actually quite good. You have a lot of people ready for entry level jobs, and then you have those who are older who are the bosses. You don't have that middle C-suite. You don't have that middle suite. So just being able to go in and be a manager in somebody's business would actually have a lot of impact, because you will be developing the junior people or the entry level folks. And then even if it's a business that you like, you'd actually put yourself in a position to take on that business or to take over that business, because managers tend to just be really that much older. They are looking for retirement, but they don't see who they're going to retire their business to. So who's the succession? Like most family businesses, your children aren't trying to do the business most times, so I think there's just a lot of opportunity in being humble enough to learn the market nuances, whether it's the consumers, whether it's the way you buy real estate, the way you invest, the way you interact with folks. Just having a humility, not coming in because you're American or Canadian or British, thinking how to do business. Like, no. But there is a place for the skills that we bring, being that we've been trained and exposed here in the West. So I do think that having an open mind to how you can work and do business on the continent, doesn't always have to be starting your own business, but I think the bigger opportunity is going in and developing, going in and working in another business. You actually see how, and start to like really develop and have impact from within is probably the most impactful and probably the easiest, the path of least resistance.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's fun and a lovely irony that it feels like Africa is becoming like the new land of opportunity. And it's like, it's a very full circle, very poetic for me.
Yes, I agree. I'm just like, it's about time, y'all.
We've been here.
I've been saying this. You can ask my people.
I know you feel like Mike Jones sometimes. Like back then, they didn't want me.
I've been saying this for decades. But hey, I'm glad y'all see the light. Come on.
We're catching up. So, the question I love to ask is, if you were ruler of the world for a day, what is something that you would implement, or what's something that you would want everybody to do? What's something that you hope we can find a way to do?
So, everybody would learn 4 languages, period.
Do you have a preference on any 4, or it's just got to be 4?
So it's definitely got to be your local language, whatever your local indigenous language is. Many of us have one, so you have to know that. Then you got to know these big global languages. So you got to know English, French, Spanish, and your local language. That's what I would say.
I like that.
That's what I would say. But that's my California slant. I think if I was living somewhere else, I'd name a different 4 languages. But like I think in Nigeria, I think you should learn your local language. Then you should learn English. Then you should learn probably Yoruba and Igbo because they're the largest
in that region,
right? So that Nigerians can talk to each other wherever they go instead of in just English. But
that's interesting. I love that answer, first of all. That's definitely a different one. But what made you go in that direction?
Because I am trying to learn all those languages.
Okay.
I want to get fluent in all these different languages. So that's key. It actually you can't do business in Africa you can do business in Africa more effectively or more, I'm going to say invasively if you know, you can be more, I guess, invasive with it. Like I can get into more places on the continent if I know French and English. When you just know English, and I know it's hard for us English speakers to conceptualize, like there really is just a certain area of the world that you're doing business in.
So you're
big
gonna hit walls
pockets.
out there.
Yeah. Oh, so I didn't even think of Chinese.
Yeah.
I didn't think of Chinese. That's a whole other part of the world. So I think language is such a barrier, and it's such an enabler at the same time. And those of us with like the one single language, we don't really understand what we're missing. And then if you look at the reason why Latin America does not get as much investment is because it's so Spanish speaking. And they don't have English speaking, as many English speakers in that region. And so the capital doesn't flow there because capital still, unfortunately, is largely English.
Yeah, it's only so many places it can come from.
Yeah.
That's
so that's for me. I like doing business in these regions. I see how much like language will make me more successful.
100%.
Yeah.
That's interesting you say that because I've definitely heard that before. And like for me, I intuitively knew like as far as, if you can communicate better, then everything's easier. Of course, doing business would be much easier.
Yeah.
But I spent a little time in Sweden and they were telling me like, so my experience was Sweden's a cool place to go if you speak English because they're very accommodating. So it's like they'll clock it quick and they'll be like, all right, let's switch over here.
Right.
They'll mess with you. But there's this idea of the coffee room or like, kind of like how out here the golf course. So it's like you'll get in, but if you can't speak Swedish, you're not going to get past a certain door.
See?
So
yeah,
that definitely makes a lot of sense.
But it's like that in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Like you can speak English, but if you know the language, you going all the way.
Right.
You
like,
you in there.
Yeah.
You in there. So the language, and my lack of fluency there, it really is. It's got me like really wanting to learn. I really want to learn more languages.
Are you on the Duolingos or what are you using?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I am.
I got my streak going right now.
I'm on my streak too. Yeah. I'm on my streak too. I'm on a freeze. I've looked at it.
You gotta
the last
do it
several
sometimes.
days.
Yeah.
Last 2 days. But so 2025, I'm endeavoring to have a tutor.
Okay.
Yeah, I need someone to talk to me.
Yeah.
My ears are just.
That's the best way.
I can read and write all day long, but once you start talking, it's.
See, I think my brain is like disrespectful because it's like it just assumes you're not talking to me if I can't understand you. So it's like the first 2 words and it just turns off. I'm like, I got none of that.
I'm like, what's happening here? And then I read it. It's like, oh,
I just need some subtitles. That's all.
I didn't hear any of it.
Missed it completely.
So so language right now is just huge. It's really big, and and wanting to do business internationally, need more language.
100%. Right on. Okay. You're stumping me today. We got through a lot of good stuff. Is there anything that you feel like we haven't touched on that you want to highlight? I want to make sure, we get in this platform for you.
Oh, thanks. No, I would just say follow me on all the social medias.
Find her, follow her. That's what I was going to say. Y'all should have had a pen and paper. You might want to just rewind this whole episode because I feel like I always learn something every time I talk to you.
Oh, thank you.
So before I let you go, I do want to once again offer the space not anything that, we didn't touch on, but anything that you want to just leave people with, whether it's, just energy, thoughts, or something they should know or think about before we let them go.
Sure. So I guess I would say pivot and do it scared.
Like a true hooper.
Facts. Yes. Yes. I would say just do it scared. And one thing I'm telling a lot of young people, like, please don't work in a job you hate. There's just too much. There's too many ways to make money that you should not hate it. You should not hate how you make money. And so I've always loved the work that I've done. So I feel blessed in that. And I love the work that I do. So that's why I can't imagine. There's no way I'm waking up at 5 a.m. every day hating what I would do. Like there is no way there's no way. It would not be sustainable. And people marvel that I can do it because, well, I love it. So it ain't nothing.
Yeah.
It's nothing to do. So that's what I would say is like, please figure out what you want to do and do all the things until you get there. And so pivot. And you're never going to feel ready or sometimes not even prepared. But, what if you said yes? What would happen? I'm a computer science major who started trading foreign currency, and now I'm a venture capitalist. Hey.
Living proof. Do it scared, pivot, make it happen, y'all. This has been a wonderful conversation, Lydia.
Thanks,
Thank
Jim.
you so much for joining us today. I hope you guys got something out of it. I know I did. Thank you all. This is Lydia Idem.
Thank you.